It is your host Becca, and I am back with another episode of Comfy Corners, the podcast that makes absolutely no sense, but hey, we're here for the fun and the vibes and not anything else. I don't know if that actually made sense or not, but hey, it did in my head. So, today's episode is going to be about history. And what I mean about history is that I want to know, okay, so I just started getting into history probably in the last year. My mom is a big history lover, buff person. And I'm not saying I wasn't, but I guess it wasn't really for me. But then I started thinking about watching TikToks, history TikToks, and how I ended up on that side of TikTok, which I'm not mad about. But to me, I always thought was really interesting was that, and I've seen this almost everywhere, is that you think at certain periods of time as so totally different time frames. And what I mean by that is that, to me, this is how it always was until, I'm not going to say how old I was when I've realized that that was not true, is that I always thought that the world was doing the exact same thing at the exact same time. So the Victorian era, I thought the whole world was in Victorian era. I didn't realize, no, this could be false, I could be wrong about the time frames, but I didn't know Victorian times, and I think, please don't quote me on this, the Wild West was happening in the US, Canada, all that. I always thought that whatever was happening, so the Victorian times, I thought everybody was dressing up and talking like that all the same time. And like I said, I got into the history side of TikTok, which I'm not mad about, to realize that that's not true. For example, too, Martin Luther King, Anne Frank, and Queen Elizabeth II was all born the same year. And to me, that's 3 separate events, even though it all happened at the same time. Because Anne Frank was during the Holocaust. Martin Luther King was during civil rights. Queen Elizabeth, I don't know. To be fair, I really don't know what timeline she was representing. But anyways, to me, I found that those were 3 separate events, not all one current situation. And so when I found that out, I kind of was tripped out. I didn't know Nintendo Switch and and Jack the Ripper, they were going at the same time. Nintendo Switch, Nintendo, the gaming system, was around when Jack the Ripper. And to me, that boggles my mind. I'm how? To me, it's first of all, I didn't know Nintendo was that old, to be honest with you. I thought it came out, when my brother was in the 80s. To be honest with you, I thought it was around my brothers when they were born. I didn't realize it was that old. And I remember seeing that, and I'm that to me just blows my mind, because I wouldn't think that it was around that long. I thought, oh, maybe the 2 separate things. No, they were out together, and that to me was crazy, because in my head, Jack the Ripper was in the, I think, the 1800s, and so I just thought that was happening. I can't remember, still trying to talk about it and get it out there, it still boggles my mind. Also too, the last execution from the guillotine happened, and I think the first Star Wars movie came out, and I remember seeing that, and I'm that there's no way that the last killing from the guillotine came out at the same time the first Star Wars came out. And so I remember Googling, and yeah, it did, and I'm my mind is blown, because I just awkward, yeah, I'm just how is that possible? Because to me, it's 2 separate things, but I know that's not how it works. When like I said, the Wild West was happening, I think it was during the Victorian era, out in Europe and everything like that. To me, I always thought that everything happened the whole world experiencing it, not just certain parts of the world. And that, now looking back, that doesn't make any sense, but to me it did. Like, to me it made sense that, okay, so this is Victorian time, and the whole, so I thought everybody was doing the Victorian time, the Wild West. And I remember one time, I think, Googling it, and it was like a while ago, thinking like, you know, oh, what was happening during the Wild West time during the other part of the world. And I think it was like something like, you know, that was also the Victorian time or something like that. And I didn't put two and two together, but now, like, that makes sense. But it's just so weird to me that thinking like one side of the world was doing one thing, like, and then the other side was doing something totally different, which it makes sense now looking back and thinking about it, but it doesn't still, and it still boggles my mind, which is insane. And I know that sounds ridiculous, I know that sounds crazy, and it probably is, but like, to me, that's, as somebody who did, I don't say liked history, just didn't understand history. And like, also, don't forget, you're talking to a girl who knows that there was times before, you know, the 1920s, the 1930s, the 1940s, all that. But for some, like, I know, like, there's 84 BC, and, you know, okay, now they changed the wording. It's not, it was BC and AC, like, but now it's like EC, I don't know. But like, I know, like, there's like 34 AD and all these, I know that existed, but in my head, for some reason, like, the 1800s, and to me, that makes no sense. And like, I don't get how, are we, okay, 20th and 19th century always confuse me, because like, for me, once again, I'm not the smartest person in the world, I know this, okay, and I can't, please somebody tell me I'm not the only one who's like this, but for like the 18th, 19th century, I always thought, this is gonna sound so stupid, not, okay, you know what, hey, this is what Comfy Corner is all about, is not making sense and talking about the most ridiculous things, is that I thought we're in the 20th century because of, we're in the 2000s. And I thought the 19th century was from like, I don't know, like 1900s till 2000, like, I could be told, I don't really know how that works. So I try not to think about that, because it makes my head hurts. It makes my head hurt very, very sore. But to me, it's like, and also too, like, how do people transition from like the Renaissance to, like, you have the Roman Empire, right? And then honestly, I'm still not good at history, so like, how did people go from one, I guess, time frame, century, whatever, to another? Like, how do we go from the Roman Empire to oh my god, the Victorian times to like the Tudor, like, how did that process go? Like, did somebody this, once again, this will sound ridiculous, and I don't care, is somebody just stand in the middle of the yard and go, you know what, I'm tired of talking like this, looking like this, we're gonna change it up, let's become Victorian, let's wear the puffy ball gowns, the weird big hair, let's just do it. Actually, that'd be kind of iconic if some just random person's like, no, I'm tired of looking like this, being like this, let's just, no, we're gonna change it up. I don't know, I'm so sorry, that sounds so stupid. But like, to me, it did not make sense of how we go from one time period to another time period. That's what I'm trying to say, is time period. How did we do that? Like, who came up with that? Like, who came up with, like, did somebody like just travel across the world and said, oh, you know what, they're doing this over here, let's copy them and just do okay, maybe I should go back on and really focus on history, because clearly I missed a whole part of history class. I need my mama, she's smart at this stuff. But no, like, to me, it's just, it blows my mind to see something, like I said, like Nintendo, like, okay, Oxford University, wow, I'm jumping all over the place, I'm so sorry, has been around for so long, before the Aztec Empire and like the Mayan ruins. How has a university been around that long? Like, what the heck were they teaching them? Because like, modern medicine was like a long time away. What were like? I have so many questions. So if you're against a history buffs or history mate, what history people must be like this girl is an idiot. I am, okay? I just started getting into history, and I'm probably not getting the best sources in the world. I should probably Google a lot more or read a dang book, but that's beside the point. But like, oh my god, like to me it's, I don't know, like it's just so weird that things that you didn't think was happening at the same time was happening at the exact same time. Like Nintendo Switch, I gotta stop calling it Nintendo Switch. Nintendo came out at the same time as Jack the Ripper was still out in London, and it's like, what the heck is what? Like I said, I thought Nintendo wasn't even like invented or came out until like the 1980s, and then it's like, no, it came out during this time. It's like, it's that old. But then like, is it Oxford? Yeah, Oxford University was around way longer than anything else. I'm like, how, like I want to know what they were teaching them. Like, I guess Latin, because I know Latin was big back then, and like the stars, I don't know, like that is very interesting to me, because like I thought, now do I know when I thought Oxford University, I never really thought of it, to be honest with you. I never thought when Oxford came out the university was built or opens door or whatever. To me, I never thought about it, but it kind of makes sense, but at the same time it doesn't, because it's like, oh my goodness, when did this, like, I have so many questions. And like also too, like apparently, now once again, history people, please do not come after me, okay? I thought I heard that the woolly mammoth was still roaming when the Egyptian pyramids was being built, which is another thing. How in the world did people make those pyramids? And I will be talking about that in another episode, but it's always been fascinating to me. But like, to me, like I said, I always thought like when the Victorian era was going on, the whole world was during the Victorian era. I didn't realize that, no, only Europe, I guess Europe was doing it, like the UK and stuff, and in Canada, United States or whatever, it was, you know, the Wild West. To me, that, it just blows my mind, because like I said, I always thought that when one era was happening, the whole world was doing the exact same thing. And then they'd be like, wait, doesn't make any sense. And for some parts of history, it doesn't make sense, which I get now. But yeah, I was just like, so you're telling me that Oxford University has been around for so long, before, you know, modern medicine, before anything else, like the Aztecs and all this stuff, like that to me just, I want to know though, was Oxford the same size as it was in the beginning? Like, I got now it got me thinking. And it also makes me laugh, because I was Googling something once. I don't remember how I even thought of this or why I was doing it, but I remember I was Googling how old Google was, and I literally cried because I realized I'm older than freaking Google. But I don't remember using Google until I was older, which makes more sense, because like when we got our first computer in school, I was in kindergarten, so we didn't really have like internet and all that stuff. We just had games that kids could play, and you could do like the paint thingy. We had a Barbie game, which I will talk about in another episode. But to me, it's like I always thought Google was older than me, and then I think I was like just Googling like, oh, what am I older than? And it's like I read the list. I'm like, why did I do that to myself? Like, why did I do that to myself? Why did I Google how old Google was compared to me? And I'm like, if you ever want to feel sad or bad, just Google what you're older than. I'll tell you, because like when I saw that I'm older than Google, I'm like, dang. Like, I knew I was older than YouTube. I knew that YouTube came out when I was in my preteen, teenage time, so that I knew. But for some reason, I thought Google was always older than me. It's not. And did I cry? A little bit. And then my nieces made fun of me, which is on brand for them. But yeah, no, it just boggles my mind how history works. And like, history is, I can now say I can appreciate history now that I'm older than I did when I was younger. And you know, when I was younger, I didn't really care. I'm like, oh, whatever, it's history. Like, some things, yeah, I, you know, really paid attention to. And, you know, it was like, ooh, like, the wars and stuff like that. And, like, just history. But to me now, as I'm older and I'm really thinking about it, it's like, okay, yeah, history was crazy. And, like, I think for me, too, like, hearing, like, how I don't think they do it now, but maybe they do. I don't know. I'm not. Hey, don't take my word for it. Like I said, I just got into history lessons. It's like, it's kind of crazy to me, like how back in the day, it was considered normal for older men to marry younger women, and in the same family. So like, you had like Henry VIII married his brother's wife, so his sister-in-law, right? Then his second wife, like, all his wives were related. I believe, like, either they were cousins or something like that. They shared the same grandparents. But to me, that is weird. And I remember hearing about one king, I can't remember his name, who married like his 6-year-old cousin or something. And he was like in his 20s. Like, that to me, and I know, you know, there's child brides and all this stuff still nowadays, but like, to me, it's like, no. And like I said, Henry VIII married his sister-in-law, which is kind of weird. And then once they divorced, he married her cousin, I believe. I think they were cousins or something. And it's like, wow. And then I think that's like all of his wives were all related. And it's also crazy to me, I know I'm jumping all over the place, but who cares, it's my podcast. How, like, you know, I'm gonna say, because thinking of Henry VIII, Catherine and Aragon, I don't think Aragon's a place anymore, right? Like, it's so weird to hear, like, of all these different places that don't exist anymore, or the names change. And I'm like, why did the names change? Like, I don't know where Aragon is, or where it was located, and what it's been changed to. Like I said, I didn't get that deep into it, but it's like something at Castile, and I'm hearing about all these places, and it's like, are all these places, like, why did we change the names? Why are they not around anymore? Like, I know Transylvania, that's still a place. I know that. And Ivan the Greater, Ivan the Impaler, or somebody, he lives in Transylvania. I know Transylvania is a real place. But like, some of these other places that you hear of, it's like, I've never heard of them before. Or they were something, and then they changed it to like either Iran or Iraq and all these other places. I'm like, how do we go from, like, it's like Catherine of Aragon to that place not existing anymore? Like, probably because of war and another country overtook that one. I don't know. But it's always been like interesting to me that like some places the names were never the original name, if that makes sense. Like I said, of Aragon, I don't think Aragon, okay, once again, history people, do not come after me. If Aragon is still a real place, I apologize, but I don't think it is, and I don't know what's been changed to now, or has it been changed to. And that to me has just been weird, because it's like, so why, and like, how do we change the names to other names? Like, how do we go, I don't know, like I said, Iraq, Iran, Switzerland. I'm trying to figure that out. Like, why did we change the names? How did we change the names? Do the places that was there before not there anymore? Why? Probably maybe war, maybe famine, maybe there was a disease. I don't know. And like, now hearing about, like, you know, I've really been into like the Black Plague. Pompeii was the biggest one that I've seen, and like, what I've heard, it's like, dang, like a whole volcano took out a whole civilization, which is insane. And you know, now they're fighting artifacts and stuff, which it's been cool. But I want to know too, like, how did the first person or the first people or whoever decide that they're going to look for like dinosaur bones, or you know, Pompeii, all these places? Like, how did they get to that point? Because like, I can't remember, was it Thomas Jefferson or one of the presidents? He didn't know about a dinosaur existing because they found the first dinosaur bone or fossil years after he passed. But like, who, like, I want to know, like, the first person, and I know I can look this up, and I know I, whatever, who said, I want to look for, you know, like, if people didn't know about dinosaurs, then how did they find the bone? Like, how did they find the fossils and be like, oh, that's a dinosaur? Like, to me, that didn't make sense. Why is my battery flashing? I just charged it. But anyways, yeah, I was always confused about that, and trying to see, like, who, and then like Pompeii, like, how did we get to the point where we're like, oh, there was a civilization here, but now they're not here anymore, and we found dishes and stuff like that. To me has always been so cool to understand, trying to understand of why, like, how did we get here, and like, how do we find dinosaur bones, and then like, what made us say, oh, that's dinosaurs? Like, how did we get the name dinosaurs for them? But like, it's crazy to think about. Like, I like dinosaur, like, I try to find dinosaur documentaries. I'm always interested in that kind of thing, and I know that, like, okay, like, the first person who found a fossil of a dinosaur, it's like, oh, this is a dinosaur head. It's like, well, how do you know that's a dinosaur? Like, how do we get the name dinosaur? And you think by now, with all the research I've done, I would have found out, but no, I haven't. But it's like, that's been my biggest thing. It's like, how did we get here? How did we do that? And like, who was the first person to be like, you know, I want to go and explore this area and see what I can find? Was there people here before? But yeah, it's always so interesting when they find new artifacts from way back in the day, and it's kind of cool to see like how people lived, you know, before everything else. That to me is really interesting and cool. And history is interesting and crazy concept that I don't think I could ever wrap my head around, and I wish I could, and I wish I could appreciate it how it was when I was younger, and I didn't. But now what, I don't think I would appreciate it when I was younger until I was older, if that makes sense. Like, now I can appreciate it more so. I don't know what's going on with my camera, but it's acting weird. Anyways, so hopefully it's all clips in there. But sorry, to me, it's always been super interesting, and like I said, I get to enjoy it now that I'm older, and I fully, well, I still don't understand it fully, but I can appreciate it more now than when I did as a kid. Because, you know, like, in school, you're only taught certain things, and unless you go into history, like your history major or whatever, unless you continue that on throughout your schooling. I think now, looking back, I'm so glad. Well, I want to say I'm so glad. Like, I wish I was into it more. Like, my mom, like I said, my mom, she went to school to become she got a BA, I believe, in history, because she loves history. Like, I remember getting history assignments, and I'd be like, Mom, here, because you did this more than I do. And she loved projects of history. I did not. Not even gonna lie to you, I did not like history projects, because once again, I think for me, like, when you're younger, it's kind of boring, and you're only taught certain things. But then when you expand your horizon and see that there's way more out there, it's like, yes, it can be dark, it can be sad. Like, you have the plague, you have wars, you have, you know, all these things, and yes, it can be depressing, but then you can also learn and hopefully change how the future generations would see us. And sometimes I get worried that now the next generation or future generations are going to look back at us and be like, what the heck is going on? Which I'm not. No, I told myself I would not get into politics. I would not make this sad. It's going to be fun. But yes, no, I always, like I said, I always thought literally somebody just stood in the middle of the courtyard or wherever and be like, you know what, this time period is done. Victorian era is out. Starting a new one. We're going to start fresh. Start new. And it's like, no, I don't think that's how it works. But like, I just want to know, like, how do we get from point A to point B? But he also talking to a girl, like I said, whose mind thinks that there's no history before the 1800s, which I know is not true. Okay, I know there was time before that, but my little brain cannot. Hello, I thought the whole world was black and white and then color just magically appeared one day. No, see, because growing up, if all you saw was black and white pictures, all you think was that the world was black and white and then color just poof magically happened. That's not how it works. I've learned that. But in my head, that made sense to me. Actually, still doesn't make sense to me, but I know that like the world wasn't just black and white. There was obviously color, but in my head, I thought the world was black and white and color just magically appeared afterwards, which makes absolutely no sense. Also, too, like can we talk about? Okay, I want to know if you think Atlanta, yeah, Atlanta was a real place. I think it was. I think it's in the bottom of the ocean. I know it's a weird transition to this, but because like if people saw it and then it matched it, like I know, who was it? Homer was talking about it, and then he said it was there. It was a great civilization. It was advanced. It was past, like, you know, beyond the time. Had all these cool things, but then poof, disappeared. It's like Easter Island. How do those faces just pop up? So I think Atlanta. It's Atlanta or Atlanta? It was Atlanta. Was a real place. I think an earthquake or something, like a big storm, knocked it down into the ocean. That's what I'm saying. That's what I think it is. I think that's what happened. But like, then you think about like the Easter Islands and then those other, what's that place? Stonehenge? It's like, why is there stones in the middle of this field? And how did they get there? Who put them there? See, these are all the questions I'm like, no, I'm kidding. I stopped asking what was the point of the world or universe, whatever the saying is, because like it makes no sense. No matter how much you think about it, it just does not make any sense, and that's okay. That's cool. But yeah, no, I just, you know, I think different places did exist, and then natural disaster happened, something happened, and now is no longer there. I think history is really confusing, but also very cool, and I can now appreciate it for what it's worth now that I'm older. Do I understand history? Absolutely not. Am I always confused and is my mind always blown about different things? Absolutely. It's always gonna be blown. Like I said, my brain is very, very special. Very crazy. It's chaotic up in there. I would not want to be stuck in my head because I'd be too afraid. But yes, I have to say history is interesting in a way that you don't think two timelines, I don't know if I'm saying that right, coexist with each other. Like, it still boggles my mind that Nintendo and Jack the Ripper were happening at the exact same time. To me, I find like that's two different, totally two ends of the different spectrum of it happening. And like Oxford University, like how did that come to be about before anything else? Like before the Aztecs, before whatever. Like, how did we get there? And that, to me, will always boggle my mind. It's always gonna be on my brain. I don't understand history. History is always gonna be confusing, but I can still appreciate it and how it is now. Like I said, still boggling my mind about some things, but hey, that's life. Life's always gonna throw you into a loop. Anyways, that is the episode. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Sorry it was chaotic, but hey, that's what the podcast is all about. It's about being chaotic and having fun. Anyways, I'm your host, Becca. Hope you enjoyed this episode of Comfy Corners. I guess I'm calling it history. I don't know. And I hope you guys enjoy it. And I can't wait to come back with another episode. Love you guys. Bye.